Guys, and welcome to my channel. It's the TinyTeaWitch here, and this is the part of the video where I give you all of your daily trigger warnings. So if you are particularly sensitive to talk about rape or drug abuse, then please take a step back now. Today's video is going to be all about witchcraft and its portrayal in the movies, and it's only part one of a series, so if you like it, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see what's coming up next. And make sure to hit that like button like it's a chair and the floor is lava. So without further ado, let's get on with the video.
And this is a list, and this is counting internationally, where they're portrayed as fictional characters that wear silly costumes and go off to boarding schools, and basically where it's only a fantasy world, which is nice, but like every single thing is unrealistic. So here is a comprehensive list of all of the witch movies where they are portrayed as solely and specifically evil and pretty much have no other purpose except for hurting people. And then a much shorter list, but still it's part of the issue, and we'll get into it later, is the amount of movies where witches are over-sexualized and seen as crazy, lust-driven, Satan-worshipping sex people. The Brothers Grimm and their fairy tales have been revered and looked to for, telling bedtime stories to your children, making that blockbuster movie. It's been something that's in the media for a long, long time. So long. I believe these stories were written during like the 18th century and while witch trials were going on. So in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, however, witches do, well, for one, in the Grimm brothers fairy tales, the all of the stories are grim, and they're really kind of frightening and disturbing, and like, yes, all of the witches are evil, but if you look at it, kind of all of the people are evil or ill-willed as well. And since it was written when it was, and since it's been going on for so long, people have been looking at these stories for, their way of looking at witches first in life, before they get to anything serious, before they can read even. People are telling children that this is how witches are to be perceived and magical creatures are to be perceived, and blah 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 blah, da da da. And even in the Disney versions of the fairy tales, or better versions of the better, nicer versions of the fairy tales, where people are made out to be not as evil, it's still they're still ill-willed. They're still the villain in the fairy tales. In Cinderella, the wicked stepmother is a witch and a villain, and in, Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent, which on its own is going to be talked about later, is a villain. And every witch you come across is going to be this villainous character that is there to steal your baby. That's Rumpelstiltskin, or a lot of people really. Hansel and Gretel, you know, they want to steal your baby, eat your children, eat, fucking like bash your head in with a spike if they have to, as long as it's to do, you know, they don't want to do anything helpful for anyone. So, the Grimm Brothers fairy tales, as much as I love them, and I do have the full, very stacked, very thick book of Grimm fairy tales and love the stories because I'm kind of spooky and creepy myself, but not evil, just spooky. So, I like them, but they're doing some bad stuff for just the way we see witches, I feel like, and I'm not a fan. So, next, Casper. Specifically, Casper Meets Wendy. I love this film. If you don't love Casper Meets Wendy, honestly, like, but Casper Meets Wendy is so good, and the pro the main protagonist, Wendy, played by Hilary Duff, I mean, unforgettable. If you have seen this movie when you were a kid, you're never ever going to forget it. And this is going to be a portrayal of witches that is really, really good for you, because she dresses normal except for the like red onesie with the pointy hat, which is great, and we all love it and we all want it. Don't pretend you don't want that hood. I have one kind of similar to it that's red. But Casper, as we all know, is the friendly ghost. Wendy is the friendly witch. And then they have their elders, their aunts, and their uncles that are just, they're silly, they're kind of evil. You know, the uncles are only out to eat, fuck, and live, pretty much, in all of the Casper movies. And Wendy's aunts are like, you know, we want money and to be like strong, independent women, which can be seen and written as evil really, really easily, but they're not necessarily villains, and neither are the uncles. So this is belonging to the benevolent category for sure of witches, especially when you get into Wendy herself, who is just this average, sweet little girl who, you know, is on vacation from school and she doesn't even necessarily want to be. And, you know, but like nobody really likes her at school anyway. Everybody thinks she's weird because she lives in this weird house with all of her strange, spooky aunts who are just realistically, like, the mansion is kind of spooky, I guess. I would love it to live in it, and it's kind of dirty, but they're pretty much written as evil in a way where it's portrayed as just, oh, they're women living on their own without husbands, without cleaning 24/7 or cooking 24/7, so they're weird and we don't understand them, so we're gonna label them as weird, creepy witches, which I feel like was a really easy thing to write and may get better in the future, but we're talking about the past now, and I feel like that's the way they were seen as villains in this movie, is just not being attached to men, which is really interesting. But Wendy, the main point of the movie, she's this she's also this strong, fabulous, independent young woman, but it's a good thing. They like make it a good thing for her because she's got Casper, she's got this male counterpart, so it's okay. And everything she does is actually made out to be funny or a joke or hilarious. And I'm not talking bad about Wendy here, but like, she's kind of the same as her aunts in the way that she acts, except she's young, so it's viewed as cute. But, you know, all in all, overall, this is actually a really good representation of witches in the fact that she's seen as a normal human being, just like chilling on vacation, doing her thing. She's with her family. She's this family oriented witch, you know, not using her powers to do anything bad. And people are picking on her, and then there's an overcoming bullying story, and it's just like a really average story, but with magic added. So I think that's really, really nice. Bitch has an umbrella that she can fly with. That's fucking awesome. Like, there's no way you can not love this movie. So that's one of our examples of where witches are going to be seen in a better light, but it is a children's story. It's seen as a fantasy, and it's very, very unrealistic when it comes down to the witchcraft portions of the movie. Bewitched. This is a serious one. Bewitched was kind of like the start and filler of an era of movies in the 60s and 50s, and I'll try to find and display all of those or some of those up here somewhere, where witches, genies, magical folk were sort of seen as not criminals or Satan worshippers, but just normal people, housewives and husbands and office workers and people like that, and sort of made normalized during this small part of the 60s, 70s sort of era where it was okay to be a witch again for just a little while. And this was at the same time where a lot of people were getting into drugs and things like that, and it might have had something to do with them accepting, which is a little more, which is kind of sad. However, it's nice that we had that era. It's kind of like the golden age of when witches were really allowed to be themselves within the past 100 years. And before that, we all know, like in the 18th century and the 19th century, that things were not great for witches with Salem witch trials and things like that. This was long enough after that where we could all feel comfortable with witches again. And we were making them seem slightly less fictional by putting them in these roles where they were housewives or fashion designers or things like that. And, you know, our more famous actors could portray them and it could be a good thing, however, also unrealistic. The Art of the Devil. I'm just going to read like a little bit of what it says on just on Wikipedia. Tells the story of Boom, a young Thai girl who meets a married man named Prathan at a country club. The two soon begin an affair, and Boom finds herself pregnant. When she breaks the news to Prathan, he appears to settle for giving her a sum of money in exchange for her silence, reassuring her that he will not leave her. However, he then wakes her up in the middle of the night, informing her that for that large amount of money, he had the right to share her with everybody. He wakes her up in the middle of the night. While Prathan wields a video camera, his friends chase a terrified, screaming Boom, the main character, out of the room onto the beach where they apparently gang rape her. That's just the first paragraph on Wikipedia. Furious, Boom enlists the aid of black magic to use to her exact revenge on her ex-lover and his entire family, notably causing the eldest son to shoot his girlfriend and his little sister. before then shooting himself. The story ends, and apparently everybody dies. Now, so, so, so this guy hooks up with this girl, gets her pregnant, gives her hush money so that he doesn't have to deal with the kids and doesn't have to deal with the pregnancy or anything, then decides to show up at her like hotel room or wherever she lives in Thailand and like bring all of his friends, and they're all gonna gang rape her on the beach and beat her and blah 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 blah. Then she has the baby. He keeps the baby apparently because she's like an unfit mother or something, and he like takes her to court and deals with all these, like, you paid her this original hush money that you thought was so much that you could show up and rape her, but then also you wanted the kid in the end. Take the kid literally on the kid's like 8-year-old birthday. The mom shows up again with like a present or whatever, and the guy beats her and tells her not to show up around his family anymore. Like, obviously, she's gonna employ dark magic. That just makes sense. Something weird is really something weird. Something weird, over sexualized, of course, and is a story about, I guess, apparently drugs, lots of LSD. Tidbit of what it says here. Almost at once, an ugly hag of a woman enters and questions him about his psychic powers. Revealed to be a witch, the ugly hag makes Mitchell a prostitute in return for her magic powers to restore his face as it once was. Mitchell agrees, and his face is instantly returned to its normal state, and the hag disappears. Number one, this hoe is portrayed as ugly from the start. From the start, she can only be ugly because she's a witch. She's an ugly, evil witch hag. Number two, over-sexualized, lust-driven character. Right off the bat, she is saying that this man has to have sex with her, or else, there's bad shit's gonna happen, and he's just gonna stay ugly like her forever. Instantly. Now, I just find that one was just really offensive, and I felt like you needed to know about that one. That's called Something Weird. It's like it's one of those trippy movies from the 60s. Check it out. It's super offensive and awful. But I'm sure people were about it at the time. It's supposed to be a psychedelic horror film. Realistically, it's just like a B movie, just like a shitty. It's pretty much just as good as the Hip Hop Witch movie. The Hip Hop Witch is probably better. Yeah. Virgin Witch. This is another real short one. We're just gonna talk about it very, very shortly. But the Virgin Witch, the headline on the movie says, she's the girl with the power to turn you on, to turn you off. And then it's got her being all naked. Offensive. Right off the bat, once again, like literally first thing, she's a virgin. It's called Virgin Witch. Second thing, this bitch is going around using her body and her sexual prowess, so I guess she's a love witch, to kill people. She's killing people with her vagina. So this is an act against feminism and against Wiccans right off the bat. So evil, but also over sexualized. War Witch. Now this is really cute. I have not seen it. I will be seeing it very, very, very soon. So I don't know, check Twitter or whatever for that, because it's so cute. Reading the plot line, I was like, wow, I need to see this movie. It seems like really, really good representation, and from what I got from just that, just the short synopsis that you get on Wikipedia, basically, I guess it's this movie about these two, or really this one, in reality, young people in war, who are captured, taught to be like a warrior, and I guess she's sort of tripping out on all of the shock that's going on during the war, and has a vision that keeps her from getting killed, so they label her as a witch. So they're calling her a witch, but she's not really a witch because she's not doing anything unrealistic. Well, that's the good thing about this, is that, you know, she's labeled as a witch just like most people are labeled as a witch, and that she's just done something unfathomable that has saved her skin pretty much. And so she meets this young boy, and they have like a short little love story, I guess, and then later on she ends up being raped, being super, super raped and knocked up, and meanwhile this boy is arranging all of this dowry or whatever so that he can ask for her hand in marriage, and the story is being narrated to her unborn baby that she's having as what's going on, what had been going on when they were younger. So that just seems like a beautiful story, realistic. It's, you know, it's not unrealistic. It does view witches as evil or to be feared, however, on a very, very small scale, and also doesn't over sexualize her specifically because she's a witch, which I think is so nice.